AFCON somehow got even wilder past the group stages, because the knockout stages of the tournament have provided even more insane, entertaining, and unpredictable football. How so? Well, let's take a look. Starting off with the round 16, obviously, let's take a look at Angola versus Namibia. Now, Angola is coming off an impressive group stage performance, since they managed to top their group that contained the likes of Burkina Faso, Mauritania, and even Algeria, who went out of the competition in the group stages for the second time in a row. Namibia, on the other hand, have surprised many football fans, with them being one of the best third place teams in a group with Mali, South Africa, and Tunisia, who also went out early. And fun fact, Namibia's first and only ever win at AFCON was against Tunisia. That's crazy. Regardless, this matchup in the round 16 wasn't meant to be one of the most exciting ones, but the game did not fail to deliver. Literally in the 17th minute, the goalkeeper of Angola slaps the ball outside the box and gets a straight red card for doing so. What was the goalkeeper thinking, bruh? Now Namibia's got an advantage, or so you would think, because in the 38th minute, Gelson Dala is on the end of a beautiful attack and puts Angola up 1-0. 2 minutes later, Lubeni Pombili Hakongo, wow, what a name, makes a terrible tackle on the Angolan player and gets himself sent off. So now it's a 10v10. And 2 minutes after that, from the free kick where that foul occurred, a cross was sent in and Gelson Dala again gets on the end of it and puts Angola up 2-0. From here on out, it always felt like it was going to be Angola's victory. And Angola didn't stop scoring either, because in the 66th minute, Mabululu scored one of the best goals I've honestly ever seen in my life. Genuinely, I've never seen this technique before, but honestly, it was sick. Regardless, Angola ended up winning this game 3-0. Was there honestly any doubt? Look at the way they were pulling up to their games at the tournament. When a team does this, you know that they're feeling themselves. Next up though, we got Nigeria versus Cameroon. Two big dogs of Africa were clashing against each other in the round 16. And the only reason why this semi-final level of clash is happening in the round 16 is because of Nigeria. Because they couldn't do their job and top their group, and instead managed to get second place. But hey, I guess it worked out for them. I'm getting a little too ahead of myself though, so let me step back. Going to Cameroon, they did what was expected of them in the group stages and came through in second. Senegal is better than Cameroon, so them topping it instead doesn't come as a shock to me, to be honest. And there wasn't even an upset in this round 16 too. Nigeria in my eyes are the better national team, and they got the win. The first goal came thanks to Osimhen's great work rate, who caught the defender lacking in the 36th minute and fed the ball off to Lookman, who somehow barely scored. Nigeria would hold on to this 1-0 lead until the 90th minute, and that's all thanks to an Iwobi cross that found Lookman again and got the brace. And with these two goals, Nigeria knocked out 5-time champions Cameroon out of the competition. Tough luck for Cameroon, to be honest. Following that though, we got Equatorial Guinea versus Guinea, the battle of the Guineas for real. Now Equatorial Guinea was coming off an incredible group stage performance, and honestly in the past two AFCONs, they were making their presence felt. At the 2021 AFCON, Equatorial Guinea made the knockout stages by finishing second in a group with Ivory Coast, Sierra Leone, and Algeria, even beating Algeria 1-0 that year. Now at the 2023 AFCON, they've gone one step further, and instead they've topped an incredibly difficult group that consisted of Nigeria, Ivory Coast, who are the hosts, damn that rhymed, and Guinea-Bissau. Not only that, they absolutely destroyed the host Ivory Coast on match day 3 4-0, and almost sent them out of the competition entirely. I'm getting off topic though, so I digress. Guinea on the other hand did the best job that they could in their tough group, with them finishing third and making it through in a group that consisted of Senegal, Cameroon, and Gambia. But heading into this round 16 clash, judging off of Equatorial Guinea's AFCON performance so far, I thought it was going to be an easy win for those guys. But in AFCON, nothing is easy, and nothing is as predictable as it seems. The game was at a stalemate in the first half, but the tide started to turn in the 55th minute, when Federico Picoro of Equatorial Guinea did his best World Cup 2010 De Jong impression and got himself sent off. However, in the 67th minute, Equatorial Guinea were awarded a penalty after a silly but soft challenge. It didn't matter though, because Emilio Nsue, the top scorer of AFCON with 5 goals, shanked his penalty off the post, and the game remained 0-0. The main man for Equatorial Guinea couldn't remain calm, and at this moment, I knew that they were cooked.
Oh yeah. I ain't gonna lie, I'm getting cooked.
And I was right, because in the dying moments of the game in the 90+8th minute, Mohamed Bayo gets his head on the ball in the last attack of the game and scores, knocking Equatorial Guinea out as Guinea goes through to the quarterfinals 1-0. I did not expect Equatorial Guinea to crumble so hard, man. You hate to see it. I was rooting for him. Shout out to Nabi Lad though, I was happy for him. Now the next round 16 game was Egypt versus DR Congo, and oh man was this intense. Egypt were coming off a pretty disappointing group stage, with them drawing every single game and somehow scraping their way into second place to make it to the next round. To put things into perspective, Egypt was worse than 2 of the third place teams in other groups. That's wild. To make matters worse for Egypt though, their main man, the legend himself, Mohamed Salah, got injured versus Ghana, and the only way that he could return is if that Egypt made the final, giving Salah enough time to recover. Over to DR Congo though, they did their job and got second place in a group of Morocco, Zambia, and Tanzania. Regardless of the circumstances though, Egypt were the favorites over Congo to make it through. But this game was a lot more nuanced. Egypt had a chance to go up early in the 8th minute of the game, but their captain Hegazi missed a free header. This would cost Egypt, because in the 37th minute, DR Congo would catch Egypt sleeping from a throw-in, and Wissa delivered a ball into the middle straight into Mishak Elia, who put it in to give DR Congo the lead. However, right when the first half was about to end, Egypt was awarded a penalty for this challenge. And not gonna lie, I was rooting for Egypt, but this penalty call was extremely harsh. Regardless, Mustafa Mohamed, Egypt's top scorer in this 2023 AFCON, stepped up and scored the penalty to equalize the game. After this though, the rest of the game was a snooze fest until we reached the penalty shootout. Once penalties arrived though, I was locked in, unlike Mustafa Mohamed. He scored Egypt's penalty in normal time, but in the shootout, he absolutely shanked it wide somehow. Luckily for him, Masuaku from DR Congo skied his penalty, and the shootout was back even. But Egypt's goalkeeper, Gabanski, dove to the wrong side on almost every single DR Congo penalty, and eventually when it came time for him to take it, he hit the crossbar. He was doing the crossbar challenge for real. Then, Gabanski failed to save DR Congo's keeper's penalty, and Egypt were knocked out in the round 16 surprisingly. What a heartbreaking way to go out. And now, I don't know whether Mo Salah can ever win AFCON, but regardless, in AFCON 2025 in Morocco, Salah FC, we will be there. On to the next game, we got Cape Verde versus Mauritania. Now, Cape Verde was a team that everybody was keeping their eye on. Obviously, it was because of the beautiful, the stunning footballing ability that was being displayed. Duh. Anyways, Cape Verde managed to top their group that contained Egypt, Ghana, and Mozambique rather comfortably. Mauritania, on the other hand, made it through their group as one of the best third place teams. And the only reason this happened was because they absolutely dominated Algeria in the last group stage game and beat the 2019 African champions 1-0. With this win, Mauritania qualified for their first ever AFCON knockout stage game. Sadly for them though, their journey ended in the round 16, because although they put up a decent fight, they gave away a late penalty, and Ryan Mendes converted it from the spot in the 88th minute to send Cape Verde through to the quarterfinals for only their second time in their history. Tough luck for Mauritania, but they should be proud of themselves for the fight they put up the entire tournament, for real. Next up, we got the reigning champions Senegal versus Ivory Coast. Senegal were coming in hot. They just easily topped their group and got all 3 wins, while Ivory Coast barely made it out alive. They somehow managed to go through with only 3 points and a -3 goal difference, all thanks to Morocco, who beat Zambia 1-0, which meant that Ivory Coast was the 4th best third place team, and this sent them through to face the reigning champs. Crazy because Ivory Coast literally fired their coach, thinking that they were going out of the competition after losing to Equatorial Guinea 4-0. But now, after unsuccessfully trying to sign manager Hervé Renard on loan, caretaker Emers Faye stepped up to manage Ivory Coast for the rest of the tournament, and damn was he doing a good job. In the game though, it didn't start well for Ivory Coast, because after a cross from Sadio Mane in the 4th minute, it found Habib Diallo, who blasted it into the net to give Senegal the lead. This lead stayed for almost the entire match, but around the 81st minute, Edouard Mendy messed up his decision and fouled an Ivory Coast player in the box. Frank Kessie then stepped up for the penalty in the 86th minute and calmly put it away to equalize the game. Eventually, the match was sent into penalties, which is exactly what Ivory Coast wanted, since they knew that they couldn't beat the OP Senegal in normal time. They were pulling a Croatia for real, and this ended up being the right decision for Ivory Coast, because Niakate ended up hitting his penalty onto the post, and Frank Kessie converted the final kick to pull off the ultimate upset, knocking the reigning champion Senegal out and sending Ivory Coast surprisingly to the quarterfinals. Wow, was this shocking. I couldn't believe what I saw when I was watching this match, or the highlights to be honest. Moving forward, we got Mali versus Burkina Faso next. Now Mali low-key are a pretty underrated side and got some pretty good players, like Basuma as one of the many examples, and they did well in their AFCON group by topping Group B with 1 win and 2 draws. Burkina Faso on the other hand got 2nd place in the group, but only 1 less point compared to Mali, so you knew that this game was going to be a close affair, and it was. In the 3rd minute, Mali got a lucky lead thanks to one of Burkina Faso's best players, Tapsoba, hitting it into his own net. I can't explain to you what he was trying to do, bro. I've got no idea. Bad touch, I guess? Mali would then double their lead early in the 2nd half, thanks to a great solo run by Sinayoko, who megged it between the keeper's legs for the 2nd. Burkina Faso would end up getting 1 back thanks to a penalty from Bertrand Traore, but at the end of the day, Mali won the game 2-1 and moved on to the quarterfinals. And I'm not gonna lie, they deserved it. Now for the last matchup in the round of 16, we got Morocco versus South Africa. Save the best one for last. Now Morocco were heavy favorites to win the entire AFCON tournament this year. Not only did they comfortably top their group, but they became the first African country to reach the semifinals of a World Cup just a year and a half ago. So with that, and that their team is steadily improving, or so we thought, Morocco were heavy favorites to win it all. South Africa, on the other hand, yeah, they were just here for the vibes, Shabalala style. Or so I thought, because South Africa turned up in the round of 16, while Morocco just went missing. In the 57th minute, South Africa got a rare opportunity on the attack, and Matt Gopa doesn't miss his opportunity, and he slotted it in to give South Africa a surprising lead. Morocco then continued to pile on the pressure and got an opportunity to equalize from the penalty spot. Hakimi steps up and hits the crossbar. He's doing the crossbar challenge too, huh? Crazy cause in the round 16 game against Spain in the World Cup, Hakimi chips it calmly to send Morocco through, but in AFCON in the round 16 against South Africa, he chokes it. AFCON pressure must hit different. Late into the game now, Amrabat gets sent off for a clumsy challenge, and Makona of South Africa capitalizes from the free kick and puts South Africa up 2-0, and this ends up being the final score, which meant that South Africa knocked out heavy favorites Morocco in the round 16. Nah man, that's actually insane. To be fair though, we maybe should have seen this coming. After all, in June 2023 for AFCON qualifiers, South Africa beat Morocco 2-1. Guess South Africa is Morocco's kryptonite. Finally, we're into the quarterfinals of the competition, and Nigeria versus Angola was the first game. Not gonna lie though, there wasn't that much craziness in this game. Nigeria just carried out business as usual. Mabalulu did have the chance to give Angola the lead in the 4th minute, but Nigeria goalkeeper Stanley Nabali, who plays this football in South Africa, comes up with a huge save. Then Nigeria pounces on a defensive mistake, and Ademola Lookman, one of the unsung heroes of this Nigeria squad, blasts it into the back of the net, and this is the only goal of the match as Nigeria keeps it simple and beats Angola 1-0 to progress to the semifinals. Now in the next quarterfinal matchup, we got DR Congo versus Guinea. At around the 20th minute though, Guinea was awarded a pretty soft penalty, not gonna lie, and of course the man who sent them through last time, Mohamed Bayo, steps up and slots it in to give Guinea a 1-0 lead. However, DR Congo wouldn't let this 1-goal lead phase them, because 6 minutes after the penalty, Mbemba Mangulu scored from a crazy angle off a corner kick to equalize the game. From here on, Guinea controlled the game and had a majority of the possession, in fact 63% of it, but DR Congo were the ones that were taking their chances, with Wissa scoring from the penalty spot in the 65th minute and Masuaku somehow scoring an impossibly angled free kick in the 82nd minute to give DR Congo a 3-1 lead, and this eventually sent them through to the semifinals. Fun fact, this was literally DR Congo's first win of the tournament in regular time. They drew every single group stage game and only beat Egypt on penalties. They were trying to pull a Portugal Euro 2016, not gonna lie. Moving on, we got Mali versus the host Ivory Coast next, a clash of two good African sides. In the game, Mali was awarded a penalty in around the 20th minute, but when the other Adama Traore stepped up, his penalty absolutely sucked and Ivory Coast keeper Fofana saved it. But then in the 43rd minute, Odilon Kosono made a silly challenge on a Mali attacker, and this second yellow got himself sent off for the rest of the game at still only the first half. With this decision, Ivory Coast were put on the back foot, but Mali wouldn't make use of this advantage until the 71st minute though, and it's all thanks to Nene Dorgeles, I hope I pronounced that right, who scored an absolute screamer to give Mali a 1-0 advantage, and what seemed like the game. Fun fact, Nene chose not to celebrate it because his parents are of Ivorian heritage. He was just born and raised in Mali, and honestly, you just gotta respect that. However, I felt like at this particular moment, Mali had this one in the bag, and they were on their way to knocking Ivory Coast out of the tournament. But I was wrong, as usual when it comes to AFCON, because in the 90th minute of the game, Simona Dingra dribbled past multiple Mali defenders, and then pounced off a rebound to score a clutch goal for Ivory Coast to keep the hosts alive at the tournament. What a clutch goal from a Dingra, man. It's crazy because right now, he's definitely one of my favorite players from Africa, because I love his playstyle, and that blonde streak on his hair is so sick. I need my club Liverpool to sign him in the next transfer window. Anyways, heading into extra time, it remained 1-1, and throughout extra time, it was still a tense affair. But the deadlock was finally broken once again, because in the 120+2nd minute, the last minute of the game, Fofana hits the ball from outside the box, and Diakite purposely deflects the ball the other way into the back of the net to put the 10-man Ivory Coast up 2-1. The game gets a bit crazy at the end though once the final whistle blows, with the Mali players complaining to the ref, and the ref actually shoving the Mali captain. When have you ever seen this, bruh? The ref lost his head. AFCON is truly the gift that keeps on giving. Also, the Mali coach needed water in his head too to cool him down. That's crazy, bro. What have you ever seen this too? Anyways, all in all, the game ended in a 2-1 victory for Ivory Coast, and they were the ones going through. This is tough for Mali, man. Conceding in 2 final moments must have been heartbreaking. For the last quarterfinal matchup, we got another crazy one, Cape Verde versus South Africa. I'm gonna keep this one short and sweet because for the entire 120 minutes, it was a 0-0 draw. Yeah, it was a snooze fest. But when penalties arrived, oh boy did this get crazy. The first penalty taker to step up was Cape Verde's Bebe, the man who scored that absolute screamer in the group stages. However, Ronwen Williams, the South African goalkeeper, comes in clutch and saves his penalty in dramatic fashion. What a penalty save, to be fair. Then Makono steps up for South Africa and blasts it into the net, 1-0. Semedo for Cape Verde is up next, and Ronwen Williams saves again. This goalkeeper is 2 for 2, bruh. South Africa's Lapasa steps up next and skies it. It's still 1-0 to South Africa. Cape Verde's Duarte is stepping up to the plate, and Ronwen Williams saves it again. 3 in a row. Wow. South Africa's Modiba then steps up to the penalty spot, and his is saved too. What is going on? Teixeira Jr. of Cape Verde finally steps up to the plate, and this time Cape Verde finally gets on the board with his penalty. South Africa's Mavala steps up too and converts it calmly as well. So now it's all up to Andrade from Cape Verde. Will he score? No, because Ronwen Williams saves it again, and he sends South Africa through to the semifinals of AFCON for the first time in 24 years with his 4 penalty saves, and the penalty shootout ends 2-1 thanks to him. Wasn't that just just a crazy penalty shootout. When have y'all ever seen a penalty shootout and 2-1, bruh? That's literally just a normal scoreline. Cape Verde got to practice taking penalties at the training ground for real. To be honest though, you can't have a worse penalty performance than that in the future. It's almost impossible. Finally, we're on to the semifinals. And for the first matchup, we got Nigeria versus South Africa. Now so far at this tournament, Nigeria has been taking care of their business in a normal fashion. They haven't been blowing their opponents out of the water, but a win is a win nevertheless.
A win is a win. A win is a win. I don't care what y'all say.
While South Africa, yeah, they were still here for the vibes, man. They don't know themselves how they made it this far.
Look at us. Look at us. Huh? Who would have thought?
Not me.
But not gonna lie, South Africa were doing well in the semifinal against Nigeria until the 63rd minute, when one of the defenders made a clumsy challenge on the box that brought Osimhen down. And of course, Ekong doesn't miss from that spot, and his penalty gives Nigeria a 1-0 lead. And then in the 85th minute, Nigeria thought they had a second when Osimhen was on the back of a tap-in to make it 2-0 Nigeria. But VAR comes to the rescue for South Africa, because right before Osimhen scored, there was an apparent foul on a South African player in Nigeria's box. So instead, the referee disallows Nigeria's goal and gives South Africa a penalty. What a turn of events, huh? Being a Nigeria fan at that moment must have been rough. Makona then steps up in the 90th minute and scores it, just like he did against Cape Verde. And South Africa had brought the game back 1-1. They even had a chance to win the game in the 90+6th minute, but number 20 on South Africa completely skied it. That was their chance, bruh. South Africa, no! Extra time will keep the scoreline and the game gets sent to penalties. Now you would think that South Africa has the advantage here, since they've already been to a penalty shootout at the tournament, while Nigeria haven't, and all the pressure is on them. But Nigeria didn't crumble. Nigeria's goalkeeper, Stanley Nobali, comes up big and saves Makona's penalty from South Africa, who had already previously converted against him. Sadly though, Nigeria's Aina screwed his penalty up completely, and South Africa had the chance to equalize. But the unsung hero Nobali saves Makopa's penalty. And then with Iheanacho converting the 5th kick, Nobali basically sent Nigeria through to the AFCON final. Poor South Africa, but to be honest, nobody expected them to get this far, so they should still be pretty proud of themselves. Now the other semi-final was Ivory Coast versus DR Congo, and shout out to the DR Congo players for trying to spread awareness of everything going on in their country. But back to the football though, DR Congo couldn't find the finishing touch, and Sebastien Haller, the man who beat cancer to come back to professional football, scores a completely random and honestly accidental goal in my opinion to put Ivory Coast up 1-0. There was no way Haller actually meant to do that. But listen, a goal is a goal, innit? Regardless, this Haller goal ended up being the only one in the match, and the host Ivory Coast, from the brink of elimination, were now in the AFCON final to play one of the teams that they had in their group that they originally lost to, Nigeria. But before we get to the final though, we still gotta talk about the 3rd place game, because those exist in AFCON. And honestly, I'm glad that they do. I feel like I'm the only one who's actually a big fan of the 3rd place games. Anyways, the game between South Africa and DR Congo was 0-0 throughout the entire 120 minutes, and the game went to penalties. Whenever South Africa plays, bro, I swear it always goes to penalties. They were really on their Croatia World Cup timing for real. Now in the penalty shootout, Makona stepped up for South Africa first, and their main penalty taker somehow screws up another penalty. 2 in a row now. Makona, what's going on? Luckily for South Africa though, right when DR Congo were about to win it through Mbemba's penalty kick, the GOAT Ronwen Williams saves another penalty. This guy Ronwen Williams is low-key a diamond in the rough. Some top team has to sign this guy after this tournament. Not convinced yet? Well, Ronwen Williams comes up clutch again and saves Elia's penalty, meaning that South Africa have established themselves at 3rd place in AFCON 2023, and it's all thanks to Ronwen Williams. What a story, man. From coming here with only vibes to then getting 3rd place. South Africa could low-key be on the come up. And now moving on to the final, it was a great spectacle. And in the final is where the biggest upset happened at the tournament. All throughout the first half, Nigeria were the better side, and they dominated the possession and the attacks. Eventually, this would pay off in the 38th minute, thanks to Nigeria's captain, William Ekong, who dunked on an Ivory Coast defender and scored from a corner. The favorites then took the lead, and all throughout this tournament, Nigeria had been very good at holding onto the lead and keeping the game as simple as possible. But since Ivory Coast were the hosts, the fans were on their side and pushed the players on the pitch to do more for the last 45 minutes. And Ivory Coast did exactly that. They started pressing up on the pitch even more and started taking more shots and getting better chances. Eventually, this would pay off in the 62nd minute where Simon Adingra, who's been one of the best players in the final, whips in a cross from a corner and Frank Kessie gets on the end of it and scores the header. He then proceeds to celebrate with the salute, which is a reference to his father who went to war and sadly passed away. What an emotional celebration for such an emotional goal. From here on though, Simon Adingra was cooking Nigeria, and Ivory Coast was dominating the game, getting the better opportunities. And this would pay off in the 81st minute, where Simon Adingra absolutely cooks Aina, dropping his market value to almost €0, and crosses it in for Haller, who taps it in smartly into the back of the net. Sebastien Haller went from having testicular cancer to recovering from that after a long time, and coming into AFCON to give Ivory Coast the lead in the AFCON final. What a guy Haller is, man, and what an incredible comeback from him. He didn't just give the lead for them though. His goal was the last one as Ivory Coast beat the mega favorites Nigeria 2-1, winning the Africa Cup of Nations as the host country. What an underdog story from Ivory Coast. They went from almost getting eliminated eliminated if it wasn't for Morocco beating Zambia, which Ivory Coast eventually showed recognition to them in the final. Yeah, I love that. And like I said, with Morocco winning, Ivory Coast still made it through despite losing to Nigeria and Equatorial Guinea in the group stages, to then firing the manager because they thought they were going to go out, and then eventually going all the way to win the Africa Cup of Nations. This might genuinely be one of the biggest upsets at the tournament. And like I said earlier, congratulations to the Ivory Coast for accomplishing the impossible and having one of the best comeback stories I've personally ever seen in this sport. Anyways, how much did you guys enjoy AFCON this year? Let me know down in the comments. And no, commemorations to all the Nigerian fans out there. It's a cruel sport sometimes.
It's an evil world we live in.
Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, please remember to subscribe. I would really appreciate it. Also, please be sure to follow my Twitter and my Instagram. The links are in my YouTube description. And last but not least, if you want to see my AFCON review of the group stages, where a ton of crazy stuff happened, you definitely want to check out this video right here. You won't regret it.